Thank you, Lucas, and thank you for Noemi and everyone involved also in the organization and all of you for being here today. It's a great pleasure to be talking to a civic university, especially because my background is in societal impact. So I come to research assessment through societal impact. And I suppose a lot of folks also come through to research impact from open science. So, and this is the angle we're taking today. So let's see if it works with me. Yes, it does. So wish we can have a dialogue. So we will do the dialogue via Menti, which is a bit annoying, I know. So if you can take your phones out, because I really want to hear what you have in your mind. We have a lot of experience and expertise in the room. So let's see. Let's start imagining the open future. So yesterday we heard of utopia with Stephen, right? What is it? What is the future that we're trying to build when we're coming to this conference for the past 2 days? So if either you can go to the browser and put the code in, or you can scan the QR. I started with 2 examples. So in the open future, patient groups have access to the latest research, or in the open future, research is properly referenced in policy. What is the open future for you? So I will see if technology is on my side today, and then we can start to see the answers. Oops, we are in the wrong question. Here is the right question. In the open future. So that's supposed to be the question you're sharing now. I need to refresh it. Oh, everyone needs to refresh it because we were in the wrong question. Apologies for that. So yes, technology sometimes is on our side. I'm biased for agreeing with the GIF is irrelevant. So I'll start reading it because we're recording this, and perhaps in the recording we will not be able to see it. So collaboration is a norm. There will be no publishers and no journals. Barriers to research are removed. Journals stop taking advantage of free labor. Researchers will have access to papers and data regardless of the money their institution has. We will be better at actual inclusion that is context aware. That's a great point of context. And we discussed narrative CVs a little bit yesterday. Everyone is credited. It's free to publish anywhere. Financial gain is not the most important thing. Impacts have equal status to outputs. Publish and access without a fee. Acknowledge more than the research articles in research's contribution to science. So thank you for everyone who already inputted. We have almost half of you who already inputted something. So we'll keep going, and the next thing we'll continue to listen to you, because now the idea is to understand what is stopping us. So I'm going to change the question here. So what is stopping us? What do we need to do to reach that future that we just described? So in my examples, we could be using more plain language. So that's something very easy. It takes a little time. Or we need to liaise with policy staff in Congress. And Overton is outside, so they would like to help with that. What do you think? Let me go back to the Menti. All right, so the first answers are coming in. We need collective action against greedy publishers. We need to be bold and pursue our goals fiercely. We need to stop having a for-profit model of publishing. We need to remove the influence of extractive capitalists from research. We need to train junior researchers with openness at the forefront. And we have the skills building research lab today. We need to change incentives for researchers. So being open counts. So we will be touching on that. We need to support people, be brave, publish in ethical places, recognize the extra work. We'll also talk about this. I love courage keeps popping in. I love it. Be brave, pushing the boundaries of publishers to forge new agreements and greater author autonomy. Start with the leaders. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Fund universities sustainably, and I know this is an important topic nowadays here in the UK as well. Greater focus on how decisions are made in open and equitable manner. Thank you for that, everyone. You are already in half of you were already in the path we're taking today. So I will not talk about barriers that are unknown and unfamiliar to you. We will continue to do some of what Stephen has done yesterday. So Stephen, if you were here yesterday, he talked a little bit about how research assessment is one of the barriers we have for the open future we desire. And that's why DORA exists. So DORA is a Declaration on Research Assessment. And we recognize that research needs to be assessed, right? We need to have a way of understanding what we're doing, how others are doing, and see how we can do better, understand what we're doing, change, invest in our processes. The way we do it, though, that's why DORA exists. The way we do it says a lot about what we value in science, says a lot about how and who matters, and how can we define what good looks like. So in the past, I want to say in the past, but we're still building the open future. We have used metrics and indicators that are not necessarily aligned with what we value. And this is why DORA exists. So we have a declaration that was launched in 2012. So DORA is both a declaration and now an organization. But in 2012, it was a declaration that was trying to raise awareness of these issues. So there are 18 things that the signers told us we could be doing. I won't give you the 18 things, but the gist of it, we can read here. So the first one, and is the one that DORA is most known for, is not to use journal metrics to give indications of quality and value of any type of research. So that means do not use journal-based metrics as a surrogate. That means when you're looking at, so what does this look in practice? That when you are going for your promotion, that instead of someone reading your paper and discussing, oh, this is taking the field forward, oh, well, actually the methodology in this paper is a bit sketchy, or instead of having those conversations in the committees, people were having conversations about, oh, this is a very prestigious journal that they're publishing in. And the venue of the publication started to matter more than the quality of the research itself. And this is what DORA thinks it's a bit misplaced where we're putting the value. So this is the biggest main thing we're known for, but we have more things, and the other things are even more important for open research. So we also say that we need to consider the value and impact of broader outputs. And that means that we were already back in 2012 talking about how we need to consider software, database, preprints. We need to consider beyond the published output, the peer-reviewed journal article, to your promotion, to getting your next grant, to awards. So how the different types of researcher evaluation moments needed to be changed to recognize a broader set of things. So this is the second main point. The third main point, we need to be explicit about criteria. It's what Stephen, whoever was here yesterday, Stephen was talking, no one knows how to define excellence. We know it when we see it. There was a quote. Actually, we cannot use that for defining careers, right? We need to be more explicit, more specific of what we have, what we're going to consider for career assessment. Then what I like the most about, recently I was in a debate about AI and digital landscape. And I was like, okay, let's see what we had to say about that back in 2012. And we're actually already facilitating openness back then because we were already advocating for the openness of reuse of reference lists. We were already talking about contributorship. We need to include more people, use credit. So all of those ideas are already there. So that means that we remain quite relevant, even we are very old. If you were here yesterday, Stephen put DORA in the first one, and there's so many initiatives nowadays. And the Barcelona Declaration is the last one that was just launched a year ago. And the Barcelona Declaration is all about open research infrastructure, so it's very relevant as well for this conference. But I'm very happy that we're still relevant. So we have now currently 22,000 individuals who have signed and over 3,500 organizations. And when we say organizations, we mean departments, universities, but we also mean the publishers, metrics providers, and the like. So we have why do we do this? Because we know, and this we talked about this yesterday as well, we know that better assessment promotes better research, because we know that people are splitting up their findings into many papers, so they have a bigger count of publications. They are delaying their publications to get to the right journal instead of just publishing in where their audience is reading them. We know that the interdisciplinarity, yesterday we're talking about how interdisciplinary work is not getting published because, so we know there is a lot of bad incentives in the system right now, bad definitions of how we're doing things. So that means that if we focus on the merits of the specific individual works, we will reduce the reliance on these competitive journals, but also some folks have mentioned private owned publishers. For many times, if you don't have access to money, you won't be able to publish in the right journal. And coming from Brazil, where money is not very high for research, what does that mean in the global science system? Who gets to publish, in which venues? It's an equitable issue. Then we also will be able to focus more on reproducibility and open science, because what matters is the quality and impact, again, not the venue. The second biggest thing for openness is what I already mentioned on the types of scholarship, the types of outputs, and someone mentioned beyond outputs, so impact as well, but even that the outputs are diversified. So we're talking data sets, we're talking pre-registration being something, because it takes time. So instead of you publishing your next article, you're cleaning your database to make it anonymized for you to be able to publish the database. So it is a time allocation issue. So if these things are not being counted, they are not being incentivized, and then they're not being done as well as they could be. So that's what we're trying to change. So last night we were having a nice chat, and we're talking about, okay, so people are still attached to citations. People are still talking about citations, and what I was trying to explain is it's not a revolution, it's an evolution. So yesterday, Stephen said, well, it's not utopia we're creating, right? It's actually something incrementally better, and it's people talking to people, and this is what we're doing here today. So it is about citations still, but it's about more than citations. So what else could we be including in our assessment that will lead us to our open future? So it could be community engagement, it could be collaborations, science communication, it could be a set of things that we as a community deem relevant. And this is where disciplinary and interdisciplinary conversations come in. So we as DORA cannot decide what the economics folks will consider, the medicine folks will consider, the scientific communities themselves will think, okay, for us, quality research looks like this. We really value this type of outputs, we really value, and then they will decide. So as DORA, we are claiming that we need this inclusive lens. We need to broaden, we need to have more. But what that more looks like, it's really about for the community to decide. And sometimes people say, well, but you're asking me to do more work. Well, now I need to do more of that. And actually, it's not necessarily true, because people are already doing a lot of unpaid labor, like someone said in the first question, we have peer review nowadays not being considered for most of the things. You've had a line there, but actually you're if it's not open, you're not being actually named as being a peer reviewer. So how can we make visible what's invisible nowadays? So it's not necessarily creating more work, but actually giving credit and visibility to what's already happening. So that's our mission, to advance practical and robust approaches to responsible research assessment globally and across all disciplines. So it's very ambitious. So we know the science system is a global system, so that's why we work globally. And we understand improvements can be made with most disciplines. And we do this in 4 ways, let's say. So we raise awareness of the problem. So what we're doing here today, although I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure you already know most of the things that I'm saying. Then we are, especially these next couple of years, we're focusing a lot on facilitating implementation. So we are developing materials and guides. So I will talk about this practical guide we just made. We are spreading the reform. So we have a community of practice of funders. We have a community of practice of different initiatives. And we are working to improve equity. So who gets a say in defining these things? And that's why our steering committee is global. We are making sure that we are bringing voices that are usually unrepresented in these conversations. So then, okay, so we've been around 12 years. Do we have anything to show? So this is the type of changes that we're seeing happening in some of the institutions that have signed, but also those that are just acting. You don't need to sign to start acting. So the University of Calgary is one of the first ones in Canada who have signed, and they are moving away from simply publication counting, which is what people would do when they were doing their promotion criteria. We act with all the actors in the system. So we act with publishers, funders, research performing organizations. So that means we're also seeing change from funders. So in the case here, we have the grant applications now includes contributions to mentorship. They now includes the plans for public engagement. So they have a list of research outputs, but they go beyond that. And if you've seen recently, now there's a cap on the number of research outputs that you can add, because you don't need to have 35 publications. Actually, just choose 5 that you're very proud of, and then tell us why you're proud of it. So that's the type of change we're already seeing. The publishers, we also work with publishers. There are some initiatives out there that are not working with the publishers, and that's a choice that is done by the organizations. We do work with publishers because we feel that we also need the publishers to change. There are someone described as greedy commercial publishers, but we also want to work with them to also have them changing their practices. But we also have very progressive ones. We heard of eLife yesterday as well. So we have a myriad of publishers, and each of them working in different ways. And then research performing organizations, which we feel it's touching a lot on people's lives with the research performing organizations. And that's why our practical guide is for universities and research institutes. And how are people being selected? Even in Germany, and I say even in because the German system is quite traditional, let's say. So in Germany, we are already seeing as well changes into how people are being selected. And here's an example of the Charity University Hospital. So open science, team science, there are things that are now being considered when people are being hired. So we're seeing a lot of changes, and I described a little bit of our mission, and this is the practical examples of how does this look like in real life, let's say. So we have Reformscape, the first one. It's a website that pulls together a bunch of examples of how the different universities are doing these things. So if you are in a position of leadership, for instance, or if you are in a position to support your leadership, you can go in and say, hey, look at this university is doing like this, this university is doing like that. So you can have inspiration because we have a range of case studies. You can search by the level even of the career. Is it for assistant prof? Is it for full prof? And then We have tools and frameworks. So these are two tools, for instance, that the one in the left is quite institutional, but the one on the right I use very much also with researchers to describe how different types of impact are possible. When we're talking about impact, it doesn't look like one thing. It looks like multiple types of ways of being an impactful researcher. And then finally, I mentioned the community of practice. So the case studies, we have now a collection of case studies of research performing organizations. We are working with the Global Research Council to have their case studies for funders also in our website. And we're going to start a suite of case studies of publishers as well to give a sense of the change that is already going on and that can inspire people. This is the practical guide for research performing organizations. So, and this is, why did we do this guide? And I think this is important for those who are here and say, my university has signed, but they haven't done anything. There's a lot of folks who want to do things, but they don't necessarily know how to start, when to start, what to do. They know that signing DORA means a couple of things, but they kind of are unclear how to do that change. So that's why we did the practical guide. So the first chapter has the principles of responsible research assessment. The second chapter has the types of activities that you might think of doing if you are in a position to support change. So for instance, set up a task force, talk to your leadership, talk to your peers, set up a community, that kind of thing. But the one that I like the most is the third chapter. The third chapter talks about the 4 moments in research assessment that happens within universities that you can change without the government needing to change, because this is something that's very tricky. There are countries like the UK that have a national system that works as a parameter. You're less free to maneuver, let's say. There are other countries where universities are very free to maneuver. The US, Canada, they don't have a national government body that will come and see how people are doing things. So that means it's limited. But most things that are in the guide for the third chapter, you have kind of freedom to maneuver. For instance, grants and awards that are internal to the university. You kind of have a lot of freedom there. So what should you be thinking when you're setting up a grant for internally to your university? When you're assessing your departments and your research units, what are you considering? How are you considering things? So that's the third chapter. In the fourth chapter, and there's a lot of open science there, it's on the different trends that are aligned to research assessment, but are not necessarily research assessment, but they should be included in your thinking and also in your advocacy. So for instance, if you're already doing a lot on open science and open research, then doing something on research assessment, you can just tag along. So it doesn't need to be a strategy on reforming research assessment. You can just say, within our open science strategy, we will also do this, or within our EDI strategy, we will also consider research assessment. So that's the sort of things we have in the last page of the last pages of the guide. So now I want to hear from you again. You've heard about the potential of reforming research assessment and what research assessment is about. I wanted to hear for open science, for open research, what do we need to change? So I will change the question again in the Menti. Oops. I don't know if I did something wrong here. Yeah. Okay, so this is, why am I in the results? Thank you, Fred, for saving me from myself. What have I done? No, we want the third question. Thank you. Another one for the rescue. Is it because we already answered it, or I did something wrong? Present mode. Perfect. Thank you. What's RRA? Yes, because we should have known what responsible research assessment was before this question was there. So I love be qualitative, but not burdensome. We need to allow researchers to publish open. We need, anyone can choose to freely learn the background knowledge for and contribute to research regardless of background or circumstance. which I work with societal impact, and this is really important for other knowledge systems beyond academia as well. Encourage open research practices by funders. Researchers and general public can access journal articles for free, if possible, or affordable. Treat academics from all institutions equally, not just the Matthew effect of who has more money gets more money every time. Let's see. Responsible research assessment be adopted by RAF. That we can have a chat about that. Clarity generally. I see a call for what counts in open research when I read that. Recognizing promotions where researchers do hard extra work that don't result in publications, which open research takes much more time than other modes of research. Give quality researchers a reason to be optimistic. Create diverse and equitable research. Be easier than not doing it. And that's where it gets tricky, because sometimes we're implementing things that are hard at the first go. Recognize and reward consistent use of open research practices. Recognize skills, not only networks and outputs. That's a very important point. Introduce open research training at all levels of higher education. Thank you, everyone. And we can have those things into our own thinking when we're doing things at DORA. So thank you for that. So I had included the training bit in my example. So we would need to include open research skills in PhD training, for instance. And I can also see that for open, we need a cultural shift on, we sometimes look badly at people who talk to the media or who go to the government or things like that. So there's things that individuals can do themselves as well. Just changing perception, changing behavior. So you could see that most of my talk was very generic, right? It was very like DORA, high level, and you're like, oh, what does this has to do anything with open research? Oh my God, just get her out of here. That's because I am not an expert on the open science aspects of responsible research assessment, but there are many, many folks that are, and there's still a lot of time to influence what's happening in this space. So I'll mention a couple of them. So Opus and GraspOS are EU-funded projects, and GraspOS has their final conference coming up, and their conference still has abstracts open, so you can still submit for that. And they are helping us define what should count as open. Should we be counting how many publications are open or not? For DORA, we don't want to count anything. We want to move away from this reductive metric. So perhaps that's not the way we should be going. But that is a discussion that the community needs to have. And this is what these two projects are doing. Then we have the Barcelona Declaration, Open Air, and Open Alex. So these three ones I highlight because they talk about a very important aspect, which is infrastructure, which is about if we're not using the GIF, if we're not using the H-index, what are we using instead? And which type of data are we using? And for us to be open for real, how can we be using proprietary data? How can we be giving money to the publishers like many of you see? So this type of organizations are asking these questions, and they are suggesting we need to move away from this proprietary databases, because we need these type of things to be inclusive. We need them to be freely open. We need them to be reusable. We need them. So that's the type of arguments that these type of projects are making. And from DORA's perspective, if we want to have equity in the system, if we want to have an inclusive system, that means that indeed the type of infrastructure we have impacts, who gets a say, which type of data you can showcase your diverse outputs with, etc. So we are as well thinking of these things and partnering with these types of organizations and projects. These type of questions are still quite relevant in terms of so is it the researcher that's open, or is it the research that's open, or is it the department that is allowing an infrastructure of openness to happen, or is it the university? What is the correct level of assessment of open? So that's a question that even for impact, I come from societal impact, as you know, is impact not a team sport? Is open research not a team sport? So how can we be still individually assessing people on being open? So that's the sort of question that they are asking as well. And then how do we incorporate professional staff roles here? So the hidden ref, for instance, comes to mind, and we have all the data stewards, lab technicians. Are we considering them in the assessment, and how does that play a role in assessing research and researchers and the environments? And these are questions that are still open in my perspective. They are still being discussed. So someone mentioned the RAF in the last question, and I was like, okay, so let's think a little bit about where we are today and where I was also yesterday. Thank you again for the invite to be here. You have a UK COARA national chapter. So we haven't talked too much about COARA, but Stephen mentioned it yesterday. So it's the Coalition for Research Assessment. They have a similar ethos as DORA, but they have a more institutional approach. So the institutions who sign need to have an action plan and everything. So there is now a national chapter with 10 plus universities and many of the infrastructure that you need as well, like UKRN, the Reproducibility Network, you have Research on Research Institute, you have ARMA, the Association of Research Managers. So you have all these folks thinking about these things. So you can also interact with the national chapter. So also a call to action here. And the increase for PCE elements in the RAF is also really important. So it's going to help us start to answer those open questions. It's not perfect yet, and there's still, the pilot is still happening for what the indicators for people, culture, and environment are going to look like. But we would hope that this type of questions that we were discussing before will be part of this. And the people who are involved in the pilot are people who are also in the reforming research assessment movement. So we have good hopes for what that's going to look like. And then we heard yesterday from your president, the video we had yesterday, that University of Manchester is committed to open research. It has a publication policy, it has a responsible metrics policy. And if you're not from Manchester, I would encourage to check how your university is doing or how your organization is doing. So there is a lot of, a lot of reasons to be hopeful. We don't have all the answers yet, but there is a lot of folks working really hard to change how we're doing things. What can you do today? So I don't want you to feel this is something really big and out of your hands and, oh God, this has nothing to do with me today. It has. So the first easy thing is to sign DORA. So the declaration can be signed by anyone, any individual. And we have the QR code will take you to the signing page. And you'll be one of 20-something people that have signed. You can ask your institution to review how they're doing it. So we heard yesterday that you're already doing open in your assessment, but perhaps when you look at the guide, you say, well, we're doing it for hiring, but we're not actually doing it for awards, are we? Or, oh, we're doing it for awards, but we're actually not doing it for departments. So the departments are still getting money by the number of publications they have instead of more than just that. So that's the sort of thing that we want to aspire with the guide. Then get inspired to read the good practices and then tell us how we can help and how we can be better and do better by you, with you, for you, because we're only here for that. So if we're not making relevance to you, then we're missing the point. And this is how, so if you're curious, who's paying us? Who are how are we sustained? So we have two major funders, the Swiss National Science Foundation and UKRI. We have a private donation from Arcadia that helped us create the guide and many other outputs. Then we have other institutions, so it's a three-tiered system. So we have some universities, and if Manchester wants to join this slide, come talk to me. But this is the sort of, and you can see here, for instance, eLife, EMBO, PLOS, so it's very different types of organizations that fund us. The Library of Iowa State University, it's a very diverse, because we are a community-based organization, and that's how we respond to the needs of the community. So if the community feels this is something we need, that's how we operate. This is the core team of DORA. So I'm the program manager, and these are my bosses, the chairs of DORA, the chairs of the steering committee, Kelly Colby out of Canada, Jeannie Barbour out of Australia, and out of London, Rebecca Lawrence, and we have the rest of the steering committee. And then we have China, Brazil, well, actually no Brazil, we have Chile. Maybe I need a Brazilian there. We have Nigeria. We have a very wide range of representation in our steering committee, because we want to keep our global status, and that's the only way to do it, I suppose. And that's it. That was what I had for this morning. I appreciate your time and patience, and using Menti, which is kind of like, oh, who wants that? But it's very nice for me to be able also to have a two-way conversation. And I think we're now going for questions. So thank you. Let's start. Yes, please.
Hi. Thanks very much for the fascinating talk. I would like to know your opinion about something that I call the early career researcher dilemma, right? So while we strive for change, we still live in a system that very much make decisions on careers based on traditional metrics. So hiring decisions and promotion decisions are still based on traditional metrics, mostly, at least in the UK, where you've published, how much you published. So in that system, early career researchers, for example, that fight this battle, this very good battle, are very much at risk of being left out because they're not going to be hired. While we try to change the system, if the cheat system still selects people based on traditional metrics. And so you risk ending up with only established researchers being able to really fight this type of battle. I don't know. What do you think about this dilemma? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. It's a good one because I think it talks about two things. The duty of care we as leadership need to have in our organizations, that we are enabling those environments that will say we are committed to this and actually commit to it, and then trickle down and change. So I think there is that. And there is the contrafactual. So what if people don't do it, then they will most likely leave academia, and that's one of the effects of bad research assessment that I haven't mentioned. We are losing a lot of talent because there are folks that are really good at being in academia and want to do research, but they don't want to keep publishing high impact fake journals. They want to engage with the community. They want to do science communication. They want to do different things that are talents that we need for the research ecosystem to happen. And then they would leave anyway. So there is this really hard between a rock. I don't know how to say that in English. There is an expression that says that you're in a very hard situation because indeed it's and you mentioned the early career researchers, but I'm also think the medium career researcher, if that's a thing, are even worse off because they have been playing this game for such a long time, and they're like, well, now it's my turn to be evaluated by the things that I've been doing against my desire, and then again, I'm not. So it's not an easy situation for anyone, really. But it's a little bit of what Stephen said yesterday. The change is going to be a little bit bumpy. And we need to keep going. So it's a bad answer to your question. But the struggle of early career researchers, and we have a spotlight on early career researchers in the guide because of that, because we need to, from the start already, recognize that it needs to change from their training. So if we're asking for impact, for instance, to give a UK example, let's say, if we're asking for impact case studies, but people have not been trained on anything on impact related activities, they have not been told by their supervisors that impact matters when they are progressing their early careers. And then now for you to have a job, you need to have an impact case study. So this discrepancy, I think it's where we need to work a lot. I'll use what people have shared. We need to be brave. So we need to defend our early career researchers when we are in positions of leadership, that to keep moving them. But in the guide as well, we have early career researchers. There's a case study of early career researchers who themselves went to advocate for change, and so they are also taking it by their hands. So there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful, I suppose. But yeah, that's what I have for today. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for a really interesting talk. I had a question about sort of accountability for those institutions that sign DORA. So you mentioned that COARA obviously have an action plan that institutions sign up to follow. How does it work with DORA? So what do you do to avoid a situation where institutions treat signing of DORA as kind of a bit of a tokenistic thing to put on their website, but actually don't really do anything with it? Is there a mechanism to kind of go and check that they are implementing change? Thank you.
There is no DORA police. Although Dora the Explorer could be one of the hats that she puts on, could be the police hat. Public and community accountability is the answer. So DORA receives sometimes emails from folks saying exactly what you've just described. This institution has signed DORA. They are doing this in their hiring promotion. I have suffered, so we have had accounts of personal accounts of, I have been told this by my committee, even when my institution has signed DORA. And we take the approach Stephen has mentioned yesterday about dialogue. And we try to understand what's possible, what's the potential next step, what is the way that the community would deal with these issues, because it's with many journeys with the open science, interdisciplinarity, impact. Each institutions are in different maturity levels. They start to implement things differently as well. There are institutions that are more top down. There are others that are more bottom up. There are others that start in one of the faculties, and the other faculties are waiting to see what the other faculties are doing. So they start. So it's very a diverse set. So we don't have, how do I say this, a mechanism for accountability, because we feel that this journey is to be owned by their own community. So it's up to everyone in the room here to help their institutions implement and pull the side of the ear when they need to as well. So thank you for the question. Anyone else? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna. That was very thought-provoking. I think my question might be impossible for you to answer, but I'll ask it anyway and see what you say. Because it's really interesting that bravery came through in what you were saying there, and obviously in the Menti, it was a theme that ran through around bravery. So my name's Scott. I'm the head of our Office for Open Research. We're perhaps unusual in that we have a bibliometrics team within our Office for Open Research, which we would see as a superpower, because we're able to deliver data to the university in a responsible framing. But we have over the years been placed in difficult situations because we've been asked for mad things, from senior people who have there are power dynamics at play. And we have been brave, and we've said, no, we can't provide this information because it's either not aligned with our DORA commitments or other principles that we align with. So the question, I guess, is, do you or does DORA have advice for those of us within complex institutions that are placed in difficult positions and need to demonstrate bravery and act with bravery, because that's not easy?
Thank you. Yes. So the way we do it is producing tools and guidance that you can use to defend your position. So we have, for instance, in December published, either December, January this year, a guidance on the use of metrics, because we say don't use it, but if you were to use it, here's what you should know, and we really discourage the use for this. And if you use it for this, it's going to be so that's the sort of thing that DORA can do, give you elements, evidence, a community that can help you and support you in that. So that's the sort of approach we take. There is, I suppose we could give advice as well. So sometimes we get inquiries for advice, so we can give advice as well. And that's about it, I suppose. I don't know what else would you be. So that's a good conversation for coffee. For what else could we be doing? Because it's up to the leadership indeed, and yourselves to decide what makes sense for you institutionally in your context. We have, for instance, we support More Than Our Rank when it comes to rankings. More Than Our Rank is an initiative by the International Organizations of Research Managers, so INORMS. INORMS has a research evaluation group that created More Than Our Rank. So they encourage institutions to sign More Than Our Rank to be able for institutions to show that they are more than the league tables. And so that's, for instance, one of the ways that we try to create alternatives to what we have today. So for a very long time, we feel sometimes that we're saying, don't do this, but actually we're now saying, do this instead, or do this instead. So we, for instance, when people want to do rankings and those sort of things, we would say, well, have you considered More Than Our Rank? Have you considered how you can explain that what you do matters beyond what's being counted in the rankings, for instance? And which is one of the, what we hear from the community is that rankings is one of those places that the type of data that is requested is not necessarily matching the institutional fit, for instance. So that's where, and then congrats on being brave, I suppose. That's, it's a good thing for me to say, recognize and reward the bravery. It's also nice. So, and this is where the case studies also come in, because all these institutions that are in our case studies databases, they are being brave of changing and showcasing they are changing and taking the risk of being leading from the front, let's say. Thank you for the question.